Dr. Eris Thorne, a name once whispered with reverence in the hallowed halls of bioresearch facilities, now echoed only in the cold, sterile corridors of the derelict space station Elysium. He, along with a small band of survivors, clung to life within its decaying metal shell, a monument to humanity's hubris orbiting a long-dead star, Eris. The architect of their precarious immortality was also their reluctant shepherd. His discovery, the Etheria Protocol, had been hailed as the pinnacle of scientific achievement, a gene therapy that effectively halted cellular decay, granting its recipients near immortality. An unforeseen side effect emerged generations later: a gradual cognitive decline, a descent into a form of living dementia dubbed, quote, the Fade. Elysium had been their sanctuary, a desperate attempt to find a cure, or at least a means of slowing the Fade's relentless advance. The station itself was a labyrinth of decaying modules, once pristine laboratories now choked with dust and the ghosts of failed experiments. Flickering emergency lights cast long, dancing shadows, illuminating corroded pipes and cracked monitors. Outside, the endless expanse of space was a constant, suffocating reminder of their isolation. Eris stared out of the observation deck window, a viewport scarred by micrometeoroid impacts. The dead star cast a weak, ethereal glow, painting the station in shades of gray and black. He was old, impossibly so, his face a roadmap of wrinkles, etched by centuries of worry and regret. He felt every one of those years, every failure, every sacrifice. Eris? A voice called out, breaking his reverie. It was Alara, the station's chief engineer, a woman hardened by years of hardship, but still retaining a spark of compassion in her eyes. What is it, Alara? He asked, his voice raspy. Life support is failing. We've lost another oxygenator. We're running out of time, she stated, her voice devoid of emotion, a testament to the constant crises they faced. Eris sighed. I'll see what I can do. He knew what that meant. Another scavenging run to the derelict modules, a gamble with dwindling resources and the ever-present threat of structural collapse. And worse, the increasingly erratic behavior of those succumbing to the Fade. Their community consisted of 23 souls, a mix of original researchers and their descendants. Others were already lost, their eyes vacant, their movements unpredictable. The Fade had turned them into walking dangers, capable of anything. He found Maya in the hydroponics lab, tending to the meager vegetable patch that kept them from starvation. Maya was different. She was Eris's granddaughter, though the term felt almost meaningless after all this time. She was also the only one immune to the Fade, a genetic anomaly that baffled him and terrified the others. They saw her as a symbol of hope, but also as a threat, a reminder of their own impending doom. The crops are failing, the radiation levels are too high. She was young, barely a century old, but the harsh realities of their existence had aged her beyond her years. Her immunity had also made her a target for Eris's scientific scrutiny. He constantly monitored her, searching for the key to her resistance, a cure for the others. I know, Maya, Eris said. Alara tells me life support is failing. We need to find a solution, and fast. He paused, his gaze hardening. I need you to undergo another series of tests. A flicker of sadness passed over Maya's face. Always the science, grandfather? She asked, her voice tinged with resentment. Never just me? Eris felt a pang of guilt, a feeling he had long suppressed. He had always prioritized the science, the hope of a cure, over the needs of his family. It was a burden he carried every waking moment. It's not just science, Maya, he said, his voice softer. It's about saving everyone. Your immunity could be the key. He knew it sounded like a justification, and perhaps it was. He pored over Maya's test results, searching for a breakthrough. He had identified a unique protein in her blood, a protein he believed was responsible for her immunity. The problem was replicating it, synthesizing it in a way that wouldn't trigger another unforeseen side effect. Suddenly, the emergency alarm blared through the station, a deafening siren that sent shivers down his spine. He rushed out of his lab, finding chaos in the corridors. The lights were flickering erratically, and the air was thick with smoke. What's happening? Eris asked. The oxygenators are failing faster than we anticipated, Ilara yelled over the noise. Someone sabotaged the system! Eris's blood ran cold. Sabotage. That meant someone among them, someone succumbing to the Fade, had actively tried to destroy their life support. He looked around at the faces of his fellow survivors. Some were panicked, others were resigned. He saw suspicion in their eyes, the unspoken accusation that Maya, the immune one, was somehow responsible. The fear was palpable. Eris, we have a problem. The reserve oxygen tanks are located in Sector Gamma, a heavily damaged section of the station. We need someone to go down there and manually activate them. But Sector Gamma is unstable, and it's crawling with those affected by the Fade. She paused, her gaze locking onto his. We need someone who can survive down there, someone expendable. The implication was clear. Aris understood. She needed someone who wouldn't be missed if they didn't return, someone who could navigate the dangers of Sector Gamma without being overwhelmed by fear or sentimentality. Someone like Maya? No, Eris said, his voice firm. I won't let you send her down there. It's too dangerous. Ilara sighed. Eris, we don't have a choice. If we don't activate the reserve tanks, we're all dead. Maya is the only one who stands a chance. She paused, her voice softening slightly. Besides, she's immune to the Fade. She'll be safe. Eris knew she was lying. The Fade might not affect her mind, but it wouldn't protect her from a collapsing ceiling or a deranged survivor wielding a wrench. There has to be another way, Eris insisted. We're out of time. Either you convince Maya to go, or we force her. And believe me, Eris, I don't want to do that. She walked away, leaving Eris to grapple with the impossible choice. He found Maya in her room, staring out the window at the dead star. She knew. She could sense the tension in the air, the fear and suspicion directed towards her. They want me to go to Sector Gamma, don't they? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Eris sat down beside her, his heart heavy with guilt. Ilara thinks you're the only one who can survive down there. Maya laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. My immunity won't protect me from a falling beam or a crazy person, grandfather, you know that. Eris nodded, unable to meet her gaze. I won't let them force you, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I'll find another way. Maya turned to him, her eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and resignation. There is no other way, grandfather. You know that too. The station is dying and they need me to save them. She paused, taking his hand in hers. But I'm not going to do it for them. For the hope that maybe, just maybe, my sacrifice will give you the time you need to find a cure. Eris couldn't speak. He was choked with grief, with the realization that he was about to betray the one person he truly cared about. He had spent centuries searching for a way to cheat death, only to be faced with the ultimate choice: sacrifice one life to save the others. He spent the next few hours preparing Maya for her mission. He gave her a modified environmental suit, reinforced with scavenged armor plating. He downloaded a map of Sector Gamma onto her visor display, marking the location of the reserve oxygen tanks. He tried to instill in her every bit of his scientific and survival knowledge. Each action was an agony. As he worked, he realized there was only one way to ensure Maya's survival, or at least give her the best possible chance. He modified the stun baton, increasing its power output to lethal levels. He knew it was a terrible thing to do, but he couldn't bear the thought of her being at the mercy of the Fade, of suffering a slow and agonizing death. Use it, don't hesitate. She looked at him, her eyes filled with understanding. I know, grandfather, she said. I understand. She took the modified baton and clipped it to her belt. As Maya prepared to leave, Eris couldn't help but feel a profound sense of despair. His entire life, his relentless pursuit of immortality had led to this moment. He had created a world where life was cheap, where survival came at the ultimate price. He held Maya tightly, tears streaming down his face. I'm so sorry, Maya, he whispered. She hugged him back, her embrace strong and reassuring. "It's okay, grandfather," she said. "I love you." Then she turned and walked into the airlock, leaving him alone with his guilt and his regrets. The hours that followed were an eternity. Eris monitored Maya's progress on the station's internal sensors. Sector Gamma was a disaster zone, a maze of collapsed corridors and unstable structures. He watched as she navigated the treacherous terrain, avoiding pockets of radiation and fending off attacks from those affected by the fade. Each beep of the sensor system was a stab of both fear and a weird feeling of relief. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he saw her reach the reserve oxygen tanks. He watched as she manually activated the system, her movements slow and deliberate. He held his breath, waiting for the pressure readings to stabilize. And then, they did. The oxygen levels in the station began to rise. He had done it. Maya had done it. They had saved the station, but at what cost? He waited for Maya to return, but she didn't. Eris knew, deep down, that she wasn't coming back. Sector Gamma had claimed her, just as he had feared. The guilt was crushing, a weight that threatened to suffocate him. He retreated to his lab, locking himself away from the others. He couldn't face them, couldn't bear to see the gratitude in their eyes, the knowledge that their survival had come at the price of Maya's life. He sat at his workbench, staring at the vials of Etheria, the source of all his misery. He picked one up, examining it closely. He had to destroy the Etheria protocol to prevent anyone else from suffering the same fate as Maya. But then he saw something, a small anomaly in Maya's final test results, a subtle shift in the protein structure of her blood. He ran the analysis again and again and again. The results were consistent. He had been wrong. The key to her immunity wasn't the protein itself, but its interaction with a specific enzyme, an enzyme that was only produced under extreme stress. The radiation, the fear, the fight for survival, these had triggered the production of the enzyme, unlocking the cure wasn't about replicating Maya's immunity, but about understanding how it worked, about harnessing the body's own defenses to fight against the fade. It meant reversing his methodology and attempting to create a system that can produce the correct enzyme in the affected. He worked tirelessly, day and night, fueled by grief and a renewed sense of hope. He used Maya's data to create a new gene therapy, a therapy that would stimulate the production of the enzyme and reverse the effects of the fade. Finally, after weeks of relentless work, he was ready. He had created a prototype, a small vial filled with a clear, shimmering liquid. He knew the risks. The therapy could fail. It could even accelerate the fade. But he had to try. He had to do it for Maya. He emerged from his lab, his face haggard, but his eyes filled with determination. He gathered the remaining survivors and explained his discovery. He told them about Maya's sacrifice, about the hope she had given him. He offered them the new therapy, knowing that it was their only chance. But others, those who were already succumbing to the fade, were desperate. They volunteered, willing to risk everything for a chance at regaining their sanity. Eris administered the therapy, one by one. He watched, his heart pounding in his chest as the liquid entered their veins. He waited, praying for a miracle. And then, slowly, subtly, he saw the changes. The vacant stares began to fade, replaced by flickers of recognition. The erratic movements subsided, replaced by a sense of calm. The fog of the fade began to lift, revealing the minds that had been trapped within. It wasn't a perfect cure, but it slowed the progression of the fade, restoring a semblance of normalcy to their lives. It gave them hope, a reason to keep fighting. Eris had saved them. He had honored Maya's sacrifice, but he knew that his journey was far from over. He still had to find a permanent cure, a way to eradicate the fade completely, and he knew that he would never forget the price he had paid, the choices he had made. He would carry the weight of his guilt and his regrets for the rest of his impossibly long life. Her memory would be his guide, his inspiration, his reason to keep fighting, until the day he finally found a way to undo the damage he had caused. He stood once again at the observation deck window, looking out at the dead star, The light seemed a little brighter now, the darkness a little less oppressive. He was no longer alone. He had found a purpose, a reason to keep living, even in the face of eternity. He was Eris Thorne, the scientist who had discovered immortality, and he was finally ready to face the consequences of his actions.